If you've ever watched sports, you've probably noticed that a new rookie will come on the scene, and this rookie will just be an incredible athlete, and they'll be able to shoot the ball well, they'll be able to throw a long pass, and so forth. But as time goes by, those rookies' stats, well, they'll go down over the years, and they'll gradually decline, and sometimes they'll finally just fall off. Well, in a similar fashion, empires go through the same phases, where at the beginning they come out really strong, but as time goes by, they will gradually go through and they will gradually decline. And in today's lesson, we're going to be exploring the lesson question on the screen of what contributed to the rise and fall of the Byzantine Empire. Let's go ahead and get started answering this lesson question. The main lesson goal today is to learn about the Byzantine Empire. But in order to succeed at that goal, we first need to describe the achievements of Emperor Justinian. Secondly, we need to list the factors that split the Christian church. And third and finally, we need to analyze the causes and effects of the fall of the Byzantine Empire. And while we're doing this, I want you to keep your eyes open for these words to know. Now, your academic word is diverge, and the rest of your words, these are your domain-specific words, or lesson-specific words. These are orthodox, patriarch, plague, and schism. Like I said, make sure you keep your eyes open for these words, and be sure to consult the glossary if you need extra help with their definitions. Go ahead and take a look at that lesson question, scholars. It's at the top of the screen. It says, what contributed to the rise and fall of the Byzantine Empire? In order to answer that question, we need to break it down into three different parts. The first part is going to look at Justinian I. You can see a mosaic of him right here. The second part is going to look at the Great Schism that took place in the church. This is a very famous church that was in Byzantium or Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, and this church was called the Hagia Sophia. In the third part, we're going to look at the fall of the empire, and you can see here Constantinople under siege. And by looking at these three different parts, we're definitely going to be able to answer that lesson question. Now you may be wondering, the Byzantine Empire, where'd that come from? I thought we were looking at the Roman Empire. Well, let me take you back because it came directly from the Roman Empire. And let me tell you what I mean by that. To begin with, in 286 CE, Emperor Diocletian split the Roman Empire. You can see on the map here, all this area in green is the extent of the Roman Empire. It was a massive empire and very difficult to administer. So because of that, Diocletian split the empire in half. And he made a western part of the empire, and he made an eastern part of the empire, and so that it would be easier to administer. Now, if you take a look at this eastern part of the empire over here, I want to especially draw your attention to this city right here, and that was Byzantium first, which was a small Greek trading city located right there. Now, once the empire split, Emperor Constantine moved from Rome into Byzantium, and being an emperor, he said, Byzantium doesn't sound so good, I will change it to Constantinople, named after himself. And what happened is that in 476 CE, this western part of the empire fell to foreign invaders. However, the eastern part of the empire, all this land over here, continued to flourish. And that part of the empire took the name of the Byzantine Empire. And the Byzantine Empire would actually last for 1,000 years after the fall of Rome. Back to that lesson question, scholars. Recall, top of the screen, it says, what contributed to the rise and fall of the Byzantine Empire? Well, we just looked at how the Byzantine Empire came into existence when the western part of the Roman Empire collapsed, the eastern part, centered in Constantinople, began to rise. Now, in this first part, we're going to look at one of the most influential emperors of the Byzantine Empire, and his name was Justinian I. Let's go ahead and get started with this first part, scholars. Justinian, who you can see on the screen here, is considered by many historians to be the greatest of the Byzantine Empire emperors. And this is for a number of reasons. One is he tried to reconquer all of the territories of the Roman Empire. And we'll take a look at his map in a second of all the territory that he came to control. And secondly is he created the Justinian Code, which we're going to look at too. But what I want to draw your attention to first is this piece of artwork here. Now this is a mosaic. Now what I want you to do is look real close at this mosaic and see what makes it up. Is it just paint on paper? No, look closely. Each of these little things are tiny little stones. And all of these little stones of all these different colors make up this enormous picture. And these are quite large, and you can see how long and also how difficult a process this would be to make it look as lifelike as it did. But like I said, I first want to talk about the territory that Justinian controlled. And you can see the greatest extent of the Byzantine Empire on this map, where it had lands all the way out to Anatolia, or Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey. It also controlled most of Greece up to the Danube River. In addition, it controlled some land in southern Italy as well. So you can see he really was trying to reconquer much and a lot of land of the Roman Empire. But again, this wasn't just the only reason why Justinian was so well known. It was also because of his code. Now what he was able to do is that he organized the laws of the Byzantine Empire to create Justinian's code. Remember, he has an enormous empire. And to help regulate or to help officiate that empire, he needs a uniform set of laws. And these laws, they updated the Roman code of laws. And you'll see that throughout the Byzantine Empire, they draw heavily from the Roman Empire. Now, Justinian, what he also did was created an outline of how the Byzantine legal system worked. Now, the interesting thing about Justinian's code is that it regulated almost every single aspect of Byzantine life, from crime, from marriage, from women's rights, as well as property rights. So it just wasn't saying you cannot break into someone's house. It was much more in-depth. Well, and to help Justinian out through his whole process of making these codes and expanding his empire was Theodora. Again, you can see a mosaic of her to the right of the screen. Now, she was considered the most powerful woman in Byzantine history. Also, she was Justinian's most trusted advisor, and she passed laws to help protect women's rights. For example, one law that she was able to push through was the ability for women to divorce their husbands. So you can see how she really tried to advocate for women's rights. And through Justinian, as well as Theodora, we saw the beginning and a strong Byzantine Empire expand through Asia Minor and Greece, and also in southern Italy. In addition to strong leadership, the Byzantine economy really helped and contributed to the rise of the Byzantine Empire. And the way that it helped was that Constantinople was an important trading center. And it was an important trading center because it connected Europe to the various trading routes to the east. And they traded in many luxury items such as wine, silk, gold, and ivory. And take a look at this map right here, where first notice Constantinople. You spot it? It's right here. All right, so there's Constantinople. And recall, Europe's right here. So many of these goods, such as silk, are coming from China. So here's the main Silk Road, this light orange line here. So these goods would travel along here, and as they would come across the Middle East, they would come through Constantinople. And once they were in Constantinople, then those goods would spread out into Europe, but they all went through Constantinople. So the Byzantine Empire became that center of trade, that throughway for all of these trade goods, and these really helped bring a great deal of money and wealth into the Byzantine Empire. Utilizing that money and wealth, Justinian was able to build a new Rome. Recall, Rome had already fallen to invaders, so he wanted to rejuvenate this idea of the new Rome, and he did it in a number of ways. To begin with, recall, Rome was heavily influenced by the Greek culture. So consequently, Justinian, wanting to bring back the new Rome, he allowed Byzantine culture to be heavily influenced by Greek culture. And it really influenced it in a number of ways. One, Greek was the official language of the empire. Two, Byzantine scholars, they preserved the writings and ideas of ancient Greece. And three, the empire's education system, it followed the Greek model. So it was a Greek education. Students would study, if you were a student in the Byzantine Empire, you would be studying the writings of Homer or studying Euclid, things like that. Now, as part of a new Rome, if you may recall, Rome had enormous buildings. Well, building on that idea, Justinian built an enormous church, and you can see it right here. This is called the Hagia Sophia, and it's this one with this large dome and these number of other domes here. Now, I want to teach you some Greek. Ready? Hagia Sophia. If you say it with me, you have actually just said holy wisdom in Greek. So pretty cool. You can speak some Greek. Now, what I want to draw your attention to on this thing are these minarets that are on the corners of the Hagia Sophia. Now what happened is that these were added after Muslim conquerors came in and took over Constantinople. They converted the Hagia Sophia, which was a church, into a mosque and built these minarets. So the big takeaway here is that Justinian was trying to create a brand new Rome. However, in the building that brand new Rome, he blended Greek culture with his own Byzantine culture. Hey, look at that, scholars. You finished the first part of the lesson. Great work. I'm proud of you. Before we move on to that second part, take a look at that lesson question. I know you remember where it is. Top of the screen if you don't. Read it along with me. It says, what contributed to the rise and fall of the Byzantine Empire? Recall, in the first part, we talked about Justinian I, as well as his trusted advisor Theodora, how they really helped and they contributed to the rise of the Byzantine Empire. It had a strategic location all along the major trade routes, and he tried to reinvent the new Rome. Now, in this second part, we're going to begin by looking at the Great Schism, or the division in the church. And this will definitely help add and allow us to help answer that lesson question at the top of the screen. Let's go ahead and get started with this second part, scholars. After the division of the Eastern and the Western empires, the churches in Rome and Constantinople, they began to diverge or move apart. And you can see why. There were different cultures, there were different languages, there was a barrier, there was a great deal of distance between the two, and there was not much contact between the two. So what happened is you had the Western Church form, and the Western Church was led by the Pope, and that Pope was centered in Rome. Now, in Rome, recall, the Roman Empire, or the Western Roman Empire, had fallen. And because of that, there was no emperor. So the Pope was in complete authority. The Pope was the most powerful person. And the Western Pope claimed authority over both churches. He said, I'm the Pope of the Western part, but I'm also in charge of the church in the Eastern part. But again, because of those distances and all of those differences culturally, as well as, like we said, the distance between them, you began to see the rise of the Eastern Church. Now, it was much different from the Western Church. The Eastern Church was led by a patriarch or a bishop of Constantinople. And that patriarch, the person in charge of the entire Eastern Church, was under the authority of the Byzantine Empire, under Justinian, for example, who had authority over church and state. So you had the emperor, and he was over the patriarch. However, in the Western Church, you had the Pope, and he was over all of the different kings. Going back to the Eastern Church rejected the Pope's authority, said, we have our own patriarch. We are not going to listen to the Pope. Well, what happens when you have these two powerful forces butting heads? Well, in 1054, the Great Schism took place, where there was a split between the church. And a way you can kind of think about this is a division between the East and the West, just as the Roman Empire did, just as Diocletian had split it. So a way to think of it is, if you have the church, where before it was one church or one piece of paper, what took place is in 1054, the church split. And then you had the Eastern Church and the Western Church. The Western Church became the Roman Catholic Church, and the Eastern Church became the Eastern Orthodox Church. Now we can compare these two churches. Now recall, when you're comparing and contrasting, you're looking for similarities and, did you guess differences? I hope you did. If you did, great job. So let's compare and contrast these two. And let's start by looking at the Roman Catholic Church. Now their doctrine included belief in only one God, also in the divinity of Jesus. The Pope had authority over all of these European kings. So you had the Pope at the top and all of the kings. The services were held in Latin, and the priests were forbidden or not allowed to marry. Now let's compare that to the Eastern Orthodox Church, where they said doctrine included belief in only one God and the divinity of Jesus. Same. They both had the same basic beliefs, but that's where it begins to break down. In the Eastern Orthodox Church, the emperor had authority over the church, and services were in Greek, and finally, the priests were allowed to marry. So the big takeaway here is that after the Great Schism, you had two churches, like we showed here, two churches that even though they had the core doctrine, which was very similar or the same, other than that, they had many different differences between them. Wonderful work, scholars. You finished the first two parts of the lesson. You are 2/3 of the way there, only 1/3 left. Didn't think you were going to learn a little math in history class, huh? Take a look at that lesson question. Top of the screen, it says, what contributed to the rise and fall of the Byzantine Empire? Well, recall, in the first part, we looked at Justinian I and how he and Theodora really contributed to the rise of the Byzantine Empire. They brought in the new Rome, and we saw how Constantinople was the center for trade and commerce, and that brought in a great deal of wealth that really helped the rise of the Byzantine Empire. The second part, we looked at the Great Schism, or the division between the church, between the Eastern Orthodox Church, which was based in Constantinople, and the Western, or the Roman Catholic Church, based in, you guessed it, Rome. Now, in this third part, we're going to look at the fall of the empire. Let's go ahead and get started with this third part, scholars. When looking at the fall of the Byzantine Empire, we need to realize that for the most part, empires do not just collapse overnight. There are a series of events or things that happen to them that precede the fall. In the case of the Byzantine Empire, the plague played a key role in pushing the empire and weakening the empire and basically preceding the fall. Now what happened is that the persistent plague, or a massive death that took place all along the Byzantine Empire, was a very important factor in the decline of that empire. Now, it first appeared in the last years of Justinian's reign, and at its height, it killed 10,000 people each day. Now, this was extremely detrimental to the Byzantine Empire because the Byzantine Empire already had a lower population. So by killing 10,000 people each day, this plague was devastating that empire. And it reappeared every few years and would further devastate the population and would weaken the empire further. Well, in addition to the plague, we saw the rise of Islam, where by 700, Arab Muslims had begun to conquer neighboring territories that included areas that belonged to the Byzantine Empire. So you can obviously see that this would lead to these Arab Muslims would start butting heads with the Byzantine Empire over that territory. Some key territory that was overrun by the Arab Muslims was in Egypt as well as Syria. Now, Egypt was especially critical because many of the resources that Constantinople depended upon came from Egypt. And conflict in Anatolia, or modern-day Turkey, would continue for centuries after this. However, Constantinople was able to fight off numerous invasion attempts, and because of this, the Arab Muslims during this time turned their attention from Constantinople to Southeast Asia and actually the Indian subcontinent. So you can see further the spread of Islam and the breakdown of Europe based on the different religions as well as religious sects. So you can see the green is the Byzantine Empire. It's this area all in green. This is the area that they were able to control in 1050. Now the Byzantine Empire, they were Orthodox Christian, so you can see right here as well as up here. Now the rest of this light pink area, or light purple area, excuse me, is all the area that was controlled by the followers of Islam. But you can also see the Latin Christian, or the Roman Catholic Church, which is based in Rome, in most of Europe here. The big takeaway here is that the Byzantine Empire did not just fall. There were a series of events that took place that preceded the fall and gradually pushed the Byzantine Empire toward its decline and eventual fall. Well, for hundreds of years, the city of Constantinople and the Byzantine Empire was able to fend off against these invasions from these Arab Muslims. Recall that these invasions began around the year 600 CE, but they weren't able to hold off forever, and in 1453, the Ottoman Turks led an invasion of Constantinople. Now, the last emperor of Constantinople was killed during fighting in the city, and the Turks, they renamed the city Istanbul. In fact, it's still named Istanbul to this day. What I want to draw your attention, this is an old picture of Constantinople, and one of the reasons why it was able to hold out for so long is its strategic location. Take a look at this. You have water here, here, and here. Remember what it's called, water on three sides? A peninsula. But not only is it located on a peninsula, but look at these walls. They're extremely tall and extremely strong. So because of those walls and because of its strategic location, that really helped the empire hold out for these hundreds of years. But as we saw, in 1453, they finally fell to the Ottoman Turks. Now, the effects of the fall of Constantinople, there were a few of them. To begin with, one, you had the breakup of the Byzantine Empire. Once the capital fell, the empire fell very quickly as well. Two, you had the decline of Christian rule in that area. In fact, Constantinople, or Istanbul, was a jump-off point for many of the Muslims to go into Eastern Europe. However, around the year 1500, the Muslims that were moving into Europe were pushed back because the European powers did become much stronger than the invaders. Another effect was the spread of Islamic culture in Anatolia, in Eastern Europe, and they played a huge role in those cultures. And finally, the fourth was the relocation of the Orthodox Church into Russia. So these were the effects of the fall of Constantinople. A great tool that historians will use is a timeline, and you can see an excellent timeline of the Byzantine Empire here. Recall our lesson question about what contributed to the rise and the fall. Well, Justinian I taking the throne, that definitely led to the rise of the Byzantine Empire. Now the Great Schism occurs, and we gradually saw that a number of events, such as the plague, as well as the Arab Muslims invading the area, gradually led to the decline. So much so that in 1453, the city of Constantinople fell. But we don't want to live in a historical bubble, and let's see what was going on in the rest of the world. In 570, Muhammad is born, and in 1211, Genghis Khan invades China. So whenever we talk about events or whenever you're studying history, always keep in the back of your mind of what else is going on in the world during this time period.